Just a reminder before today's programme that part 1 of the AMTV DVD collection is still available to view. And now, here on AMTV, we go back to the DVD collection. Time for part 2. Hello everybody, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to part 2 of the AMTV DVD collection. If you haven't seen part 1, I highly recommend it. We took a look at this top row of movies here, but now we will move on to the second row here in part 2. So kicking things off, we have The Day After Tomorrow, a disaster movie of the same person who made Independence Day. I didn't mind this one. It was around mid-2000s, you know, special effects and all, but I don't mind it. Nice special edition too. Got Dead Silence, which is an eerie horror film by the people who made Saw. Again, not as good as Saw, but I quite like this one. Now, I watched this recently, The Death of Stalin, made by the same guy who made the Thick of It TV show. This is a great film, really funny, really great comedy, some really great performances as well. Basically, if you like The Thick of It, if you like his style, you'll really enjoy Death of Stalin. Now, we've also got Denial, which is about Timothy Spall playing a Holocaust denier, and Rochelle Weisz trying to convince him otherwise. Yeah, really good, like, courtroom drama film, very powerful as well when you get down to it. Also powerful is this film, Detroit, which stars John Boyega and a whole bunch of other famous faces you might recognise. This is about the 1967 Detroit riots. Again, very powerful, very moving film. Highly recommended though. Excellent, excellent film. Then you've got The Devil's Rejects, a very messed up horror film. If you don't like gore, that is not one for you. But again, very interesting as a horror fan, but yeah, very messed up as well. You got Diana, starring Naomi Watts. Here actually they're making a Diana, either a TV show or another movie. A lot of people didn't like this one. I didn't mind it as much. Granted, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I didn't mind this film, to be honest. You've got The Dictator, Sacha Baron Cohen. Of course, Borat 2's coming out soon. And I actually really enjoy The Dictator. I haven't seen it in a while. Will I probably not find it as funny as I did in 2012? Maybe. But yeah, I enjoyed this one for what it was. And this film, Dirty Dancing, this is the 30th anniversary collector's edition. Of course, this is a classic 80s film. And this just has like loads of things on it, loads of special features, loads of extras like posters, postcards, all that sort of stuff. So to get the DVD and all those extras, at the time I think it was only about £7. That was a really great find, and a great movie as well, Dirty Dancing is. A DVD steelbook now with District 9, a really great film. Of course, this was nominated for Best Picture in 2009. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a really, really cool film. Nice to have this DVD steelbook as well. I know there's probably a Blu-ray one, but again, they made some DVD steelbooks, and I picked that one up. Now you've got, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, which a lot of people forget was directed by Stanley Kubrick, the same guy who made 2001, Clockwork Orange, but it stars big names Peter Sellers, George C. Scott. It's a very weird film. You've got to be paying attention a lot. It talks a lot about the conflicts in the world at the time, but a very good film nonetheless. And now one of the funniest films I grew up with during childhood, Dodgeball, starring Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller. This might not be as funny now, but honestly, if you haven't seen Dodgeball, you'll probably get a laugh out of it. It's just so stupid and wacky, and Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller wham it up to the max. But it's, you know, cracking film in its own right. Now you've got Dog Soldiers, which I watched recently. This is an early 2000s sort of British horror action film starring Sean Pertwee, John Pertwee's son, and yeah, again, very cool premise, good special effects, scary in some places, just an all-round good movie. So yeah, check out Dog Soldiers. And then you got Dunkirk, a Christopher Nolan movie. I really enjoyed this. I saw this in IMAX, which I believe is the best way to see it. It's a very powerful film. Again, maybe not the best war movie I've ever seen, but nice to have it on the shelf nonetheless. This was always a great find. This is Easy Rider, the special edition. This is a nice big chunky box set, and again, like the Dirty Dancing one, this comes with all sorts of extra goodies, loads of special features and stuff. This was at the time the 35th anniversary, so this was released in 2004, and would you believe I picked this up from a charity shop for a crisp £1, and it all plays perfectly. A good example of the deals you can find if you just look in the right places. Fully on E now, we've got this film, Ed Wood, which stars Johnny Depp and directed by Tim Burton. For anyone who doesn't know, Ed Wood is a famous B-movie director from the 50s. His movies were never that good, but hey, he always tried, and he had a few things he wanted to get out there. You know, he liked to well, he was a closeted man, shall we say, but a very powerful, great film, so check out Ed Wood. And one of my favourite films, Eddie the Eagle, starring Taron Egerton and Hugh Jackman, based on the guy, Eddie, who wanted to go to the Olympics, and he did, the Winter ones in 1988. Yes, it's a sports film, but I often find sports films can be very powerful like this, and I loved Eddie the Eagle. The music soundtrack is fantastic, all original sort of 80s sounding music. And yeah, it's just it's a feel-good film. You'll like it, so check out Eddie the Eagle if you haven't seen it already. Now you've got these films here, the Edgar Allan Poe films, if you like, that were made in the 1960s, a lot of them by Roger Corman, starting with this, The Fall of the House of Usher, which stars Vincent Price. You've got The Pit and the Pendulum from 1961, which also stars Vincent Price. Then, moving away from the same company that put them out, you've got The Premature Burial, and that stars Ray Milland. I don't think Vincent Price is actually in it. Then the fourth one in this is Tales of Terror, which is like a compilation film, and actually it's a really good one, and you've got Vincent Price, Peter Lorre and Basil Rathbone in it. Really great entry in that series. Then moving to Blu-ray briefly, we have The Haunted Palace, which also stars Vincent Price. I have this on Blu-ray because, to my knowledge, still, this was not released on DVD here in Region 2. I think there's a Region 2 DVD in the US, but alas, it is only on Blu-ray here. It's an Arrow release as well, which is pretty cool. And being as it's Arrow, you know, you got tons of special features, and it's on Blu-ray, so bit annoying it doesn't sort of fit with the rest, but I didn't have any other choice. You have The Raven, which stars Vincent Price, Peter Lorre and Boris Karloff. Really cool film there. Then in the 64, you've got The Mask of Red Death, again starring Vincent Price. This is one of the favourites of mine of this set. And finishing with The Tomb of Ligeia, again starring Vincent Price. This is probably one of the weakest films, probably because Vincent Price, as much as I love him, was probably miscast in this one. He was a bit too old for the part. But, you know, it concluded the Edgar Allan Poe stuff there. Now you've got The Elephant Man, starring John Hurt. This is a beautiful, beautiful film about the tragic story of John Merrick, who was disfigured, quite frankly, and how he was shunned and how he just wanted to live a life, basically. It's a very powerful film. John Hurt does a fantastic job alongside Anthony Hopkins. So definitely watch The Elephant Man if you haven't seen it. You won't be disappointed. Now you've got Erin Brockovich, a really inspiring film about a woman who went a great way to change things. Just a really great film starring Julia Roberts, probably my favourite role of hers. You've got Escape from New York, a John Carpenter film starring Kurt Russell. This is sort of classic 80s stuff. I can't remember if they've done a remake of this. There was definitely a sequel, which I haven't seen, but this is a really fun film. You've got Escape Plan, which I think I only mainly got because it is Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone teaming up. They're like two guys trying to escape a prison. Really, really cool premise. I know they've done sequel after sequel that I haven't watched. I don't know if they're any good. You've got some James Bond now with Everything or Nothing. This was a documentary that was released in 2012 for the 50th anniversary of the film series. It basically talks to most of them, you know, interviews about the franchise and stuff. I'm glad they did a DVD release of this, because I saw this once on a plane flight, and I was really worried they never put it out on DVD, but alas, here it is. They did put it out. Then one of the classic films of the 80s, E.T., which is, of course, directed by Steven Spielberg. If you haven't seen E.T., what are you doing? You need to watch this film, man. And then in the corner, you've got this, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the first in the new series, starring Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander. I really liked this first film. The second one wasn't so good, and I don't own that on DVD just yet. But the first one I actually really did enjoy. Always been a Harry Potter kind of guy. And this one, you got Fences with Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. I really enjoyed this film. I know it's based on a play, and a lot of people didn't like this in comparison to the play. But I haven't seen it, but I really enjoyed the film. It's very real, it's very raw. Great performances from Denzel and Viola. Absolutely stunning. So yeah, check out Fences if you haven't seen it already. And you've got this, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, one of the classic John Hughes 80s movies starring Matthew Broderick. Loads of people love Ferris. And yeah, very feel-good, very fun 80s movie. And I think I said in part 1, I love those sorts of movies, so nice to have this. Now moving on to the second side of the shelf and kicking off with this box set. This is the Final Destination Thrillology, which basically contains Final Destination 1, Final Destination 2, and Final Destination 3. These films are a really big guilty pleasure of mine. I watched them when I was a teen, and yes, I know they're meant to be horror, all about people dying one by one, but me and my friends often just found them funny. You know, we just wanted to laugh about who was going to die next in what abstract way, so nice to have that. But don't worry, I also have the fourth film, which they stupidly titled The Final Destination 3D. This was my big gripe with this. Yes, they released it in 3D. that doesn't really matter, but they called it The Final Destination, which, just call it Final Destination 4, don't try and do that gritty reboot sort of thing, because they went back on it for the next one, Final Destination 5 here. They went back to the numbers, so you've got Final Destination 1, 2, 3, then The Final Destination, then Final Destination 5. But for the record, this was the only one I saw in the cinema with my brother, and we loved this one. This was a really great return to form for the series, and a nice conclusion. They haven't made one since, in the 9 years since this one, and I think I just want them to leave it. The 5 films stand nice as they are. More recent film now, you've got this one, First Man, with Ryan Gosling. Now, this was all about the guys getting to the moon and the Apollo 11, you know, Neil Armstrong and all that. Really great film. Maybe a little bit too long, but a very nice film to watch nonetheless, especially if you're into space stuff. But from space, you're going back to World War II with this. This is a DVD steelbook. It's the 2 films Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, both directed by Clint Eastwood. Now, the premise of this was always good. You know, 2 films, one looking at the American side of the conflict and one looking at the Japanese side. Because, of course, Letters from Iwo Jima is completely in Japanese. And it's the better film. Flags of Our Fathers I found really boring, really slow, didn't really go anywhere. Letters from Iwo Jima is so powerful, so much better, a more engaging film. But nice to have the 2 films in a steelbook combo. Another DVD steelbook now. This is Flash Gordon. This is the Silver Anniversary edition, so the 25th anniversary. Flash Gordon, again, released in 1980. Very fun, quirky film based on the old serials. And yeah, just a really fun old film. I know if you're interested, they've done a recent Blu-ray or 4K steelbook of this, so those of you who are into that might want to grab that instead. Now you've got Flight 93, which is a very powerful film, of course, about the September 11th attacks. I think that speaks for itself. But yeah, if you're interested in checking that out, just be warned, of course, it is about what it's about. Another steelbook, we have The Fly. Now this is the 1986 version of The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum. One of the best horror films of the 1980s. Really horrific, like, effects that are really grotesque, but a really great story as well. Great update of the 50s Fly, so definitely check that out. We have Forbidden Planet, one of the best 50 science fiction films of all time. This is the 50th anniversary edition, which I believe goes for a fair bit of cop now. It's on 2 discs, and, you know, great characters with Walter Pidgeon and Anne Francis, and Leslie Nielsen, of course, appeared in this, but yeah, one of the most iconic 50s films of all time. Check out Forbidden Planet. Now, one of a niche film, The Founder. So this stars Michael Keaton as Ray Kroc, the guy who discovered the McDonald's brothers of, well, McDonald's fast food, and basically made it into what it is today. I mean, he was a clever guy, but he was also a cruel guy. And a lot of people didn't like this, but I'd actually recommend watching it. It's very interesting, the insight into it. And yeah, it was one of my favourite films of that year. Four Lions, what a classic film this was. This is from 2010, and how I always describe this to people is this is a film about 4 guys who want to be terrorists but are bad at being terrorists. So that's all the description I'm going to give you, but very funny film and a very old film now. This is Freaks, of course a term we don't really use anymore. Todd Browning's Freaks. This was released in 1932 and it's rated 15 for a reason. It is very grotesque. It doesn't leave much to be desired. There's a lot of, well, things that would be considered 15 even back then. It's very harrowing, so if you're not into people being sort of abused for their disfigurements, if you like, maybe don't watch it. But as a piece of history, it was an interesting watch. Now, this set was always interesting. This is Friday the 13th. This is the first 8 films. So it says even there, from Crystal Lake to Manhattan. And I don't know if in Region 2 they've ever released a more updated set with these films. They probably have done, but this was quite elusive from some time, and I believe now is quite expensive. I got mine for 30 quid, but I think it goes even higher than that now, from what I understand. But this has the first 8 Friday the 13th films, which, you know, they made that many. Yes, they did. 8 films, no mercy. And, you know, they are what they are. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but that's like a lot of horror these days. Though I will say I think the original is the best, as is the case with a lot of these franchises. Here's Part 9, Jason Goes to Hell. This was quite hard to find on DVD. I don't know if they've made that easier, but yeah, a bit underwhelming. The Final Friday it was called. Well, no, here's Jason X, which came out some years later. So, but essentially Friday the 13th 10, this is all about like Jason in space. It was the early 2000s, man. It was a weird time. And also have to have Freddy versus Jason, of course. This was the crossover with Nightmare on Elm Street. Actually, not a bad crossover. Could have been better, but for what it is, I really enjoyed it. I don't own the Friday the 13th remake because, well, why would I? Here's Future World, and I don't know why I didn't put these two together. Westworld, not the TV show, the original film from the 70s. This is the sequel to Westworld. Is it as good? No. Is it still interesting? To a degree, but we'll get to Westworld in another part, I guess. On to G, we're on Get Out, one of the most acclaimed horror films from the year it came out. I think it was 2017. And yeah, there's a reason. This film is really, really good. Like, the pacing, the horror elements. Jordan Peele did a fantastic job. I still haven't seen Us, though, which was his next film. Now we're into some Godzilla. You might wonder where the first films are, but they're in a different part of my collection. You'll see that in another video. But so on the DVD shelf, you've got Godzilla 1984, which was the first reboot and the start of the Heisei era. Then you've got Godzilla vs. Biollante. This is all of these, actually, of the classic ones are Region 1 discs. They haven't had Region 2 releases, which is really annoying. And this one is quite hard to find or import, should I say. It'll cost you a bit more, but it was actually a good film. Then the rest of the Heisei era is on this box set, which is actually Region 4, an Australian release. So that has Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Mothra, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, and Godzilla vs. Destroyer, all classic Godzilla films from the 1990s there. And from the same company in Australia, you have the Millennium series. And obviously they've skipped the 98 film, but they're kicking it in with Godzilla 2000, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, Godzilla, Mothra, and Ghidorah, all monsters, giant monsters all out attack, or whatever it is. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, or Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 3. Godzilla Tokyo SOS, and Godzilla Final Wars, which is a ton of fun. Godzilla Final Wars, that was like the 50th anniversary finale. Nice to have all these films after so long for wanting them. In the Japan line, you have Shin Godzilla, which came out in 2016, and in terms of the Toho produced films, this is the last one they've made at this point. I know there's the anime trilogy on Netflix, but in terms of like proper films, Shin Godzilla is the most recent. You have Godzilla 98, the first American attempt to do Godzilla. That it's a fine action movie, they just shouldn't have called it Godzilla. Then they tried again in 2014. This one was a bit better, but it took so long for you to actually see Godzilla. That was the main problem with that one. And then they tied in the universe with Kong Skull Island, which is actually a half-decent movie, you know. I wouldn't say it's a bad film at all. And then this, Godzilla King of the Monsters last year. This was an excellent film, bringing back Rodan and King Ghidorah and Mothra and the use of the music. Much better film. One of the best films of 2019. That's not a joke either. Then you have Good Night and Good Luck, which is all about sort of TV in the 50s. George Clooney's in it. It's hard to describe, but it's a very good film. If you're into TV history, you'll like that. Near the end of this side, you've got Goodnight Mr. Tom, which was something I watched in school. It's a classic story about a young boy who gets sent as an evacuee to live with this guy, Mr. Tom, who at first doesn't want to look after him, but, you know, warms to him. It's a very heartwarming film. Definitely check it out. Then you've got Grease, a true musical classic, I think you'll say. Was it say voted best musical ever? Maybe back then it was, of course. And yeah, it's hard not to like Grease. It's a bit cheesy, but yeah, what's that I'll say about Grease? And it's not, you can't see it, but it was on this side. I own the sequel, Grease 2. Right, this film is not bad, whatever anyone says. It's got Michelle Pfeiffer in a really early role. Grease is still the word, is a lame tagline. That's a bit lazy. But yeah, I like it. This was 1982, I think this came out. And basically, whereas Grease 1 was, you know, set in the 50s, but the music was very 70s, this is set in the 60s, but the music sounds very 80s. So, I mean, what you're going to do. But yeah, Grease 2 is a good movie. And that will do it for part 2, I think, ladies and gentlemen. That is the second row on the DVD shelf. I hope you enjoyed it, looking at everything from The Day After Tomorrow all the way up until Grease 2. So please do come back for part 3, where we'll start on this shelf now. I hope you're enjoying how we're doing this, but don't worry, all of these movies will eventually be covered as part of the AMTV DVD collection. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed, leave a like on this video, leave your comments down below as well. Did you own any of these movies, and are there any movies you're hoping to see in the collection at some point? Please subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and until the next one, I will see you guys next time. A massive thank you to our producer and director patrons for your support towards us here at AMTV. You just help keep us going, and that's massively appreciated. And that does bring us to the end of another evening here on AMTV. We hope you enjoyed the programme, and we hope to see you next time. Good night.